Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of songs to cry to, which it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Sometimes we have themes that are kind of got to explain, but I think this one's pretty on the nose. We're going to be moving forward with American football. This is a group that, as far as I know, is Midwest emo, which emo sounds like a perfect genre for this week. Midwest emo is something I never really got into. I was more of the alt-rock pop kind of emo. So let's move into this and see what American football is bringing to the table with their song, Never Meant. Alright, so that's interesting. We have a 3-bar phrase of 4/4. A little mathy. Those syncopated bass hits. Interesting, the duality here between the dreariness and some more of the positive elements of our moving guitar line. You got some repeating mantra back there. This repeating loop in our guitars as well. Yeah, just very, very cyclical in this moment. I like the polyrhythmic idea between our two guitars as well. Okay. A lot of these ups and downs, almost probably hammer-ons and pull-offs, because they have very light legato playing to them. We got this syncopated element here where we're shifting from downbeat accents to offbeat accents. Yeah, very dreary, it is, but also a little dreamlike. It's interesting too that we have taken our intro guitar line and introduced the bass line from the previous section to create this hybrid outro that features musical concepts from the beginning of the track and where we moved into at the end of it. Interesting. There we go. So yeah, this feels a little math rocky to me. It has frequent use of either odd phrasings, odd time signature, not odd time signatures, different time signatures, something other than 4/4, and playfulness with the guitar line that tends to incorporate a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs in shorter segments, as well as string slides, to achieve a varied and diverse collection of attacks in a single pattern. This is something that I see a lot in modern math rock, especially, and it's something that we can see even in bands that have taken math rock into a different direction, and definitely a more mainstream one, such as bands like Polyphia, where we can also see a lot of these same ideas in how we go about creating a melody line. It isn't just about picking everything. There's also tapping and hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides. There's all sorts of things to spice up the attack, the initial sound that each note has. It's not just pick, 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 pick. You have legato sounds, you have staccato sounds, you have softer sounds, you have hammer-ons. There's like slides, which is a gradual shift between notes. It's all about creating that nuanced changes between each note, and we hear a lot of that in here. I don't know if this is math rock. I've always heard of American football as Midwest emo, which is how I introduced them at the beginning of the video. But it is interesting, at least to me, that I'm hearing, if nothing else, a small aspect of math rock in here. This video, the video's from 2014. The album's from 1999. I don't know when math rock started. This could be a precursor to math rock. This might be proto-math rock stuff. To me, math rock is more of a modern genre, modern-ish, 2000s and later. Which, I mean, modern-ish is the last 20 years. That's still like a very large gap of time. But, yeah, it's just... When I think of 1999, I think of simpler music, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't know if these are precursors or if the genre is already set. You guys, let me know. Hit me up in the comments and talk to me about math rock. Let's dive into what this band is doing with this, though. So we have this math rock idea from our guitar. Our drums are playing within this as well, and we have a second guitar who is playing around this lead idea. There might not be a second guitar. There is a bass, though. And the bass pops up later. I don't think we had the bass in our intro. If we did, it was very simple ideas that I missed. What's really interesting here, though, what stands out to me, is that not only do we have this very pronounced style of guitar performance going on, but it's also played with a very loud notion towards our time signature or phrasing, however you want to look at this. I'm a little curious about how American football views this section. It might be polyrhythmic for all I know, or I guess in this case polymetric, but it can be felt as both 4 bars of 3/4 and 3 bars of 4/4. If we multiply our top numbers, we have 3 beats across 4 bars, which is 12 beats total, or 4 beats across 3 bars, which is still 12 beats total, which is why if it was polymetric, it would line up every 12 beats. That is when 3 and 4 will line up the first time, and beat 1, the downbeat of the bar, will occur at the same time on both time signatures. Um, and when I initially listened to it, I felt it in 4. And that fit with the guitar and drumming that we had in our intro. When they bring this idea back in the outro and we have the bass there with the syncopated hits, it comes in with its strikes. We get the downbeat of 1. If we're in 3, our next 2 hits are on the offbeat of 1. They're on the 1 and the halfway point between 1 and 2. So we get 1 and of 1 and of 1. I don't remember where the fourth one comes. It might be on 1 again. So we get this the cycle of 1 1 and of 1 and of 1 1 1 and of 1 and of 1. So we get the syncopated idea. That only works when you view it in 3, and the bass has such a prominent aspect in our outro that it forced me to feel that in 3, even though the guitar part still feels like 4 to me. And it's just a very nice moment of, at least for me, solidifying the polymetric element here. More so than I felt in our intro where our bass wasn't doing this idea. It's just a very cool way of sort of alluding to polymetric ideas and then at the end saying, nah, actually they're there. We promise you, let's lay it down for you. Here's our 4, here's our 3, all right? Very cool. Aside from our opening and outro, we also have all the moments in between, and I'm not going to lie, some of this kind of blurs together for me. The guitar work is very similar throughout all of this, and so is the drum and bass work. In fact, the drums, I want to touch on this real quick because it's a very tasteful type of drumming. We have a few embellishing ideas here and there that fit in with the embellishing lines that we're getting out of our guitar. A lot of those are those really quick hammer-ons and pull-offs that typically take us up to the next note and then down back to our starting note. It allows the line to have some changes in its rhythmic structure. It also allows extra movement, so it feels like it's encroaching on more emotional territory without actually changing what would be done. See, here's the deal with that da-da-da, da-da-da. You use that little hit your note, go up 1 and come back down 1. First of all, playing it, now I'm not saying this to diminish the performance here, but playing it is rather simple once you understand how hammer-ons and pull-offs work. It is literally one finger hitting, the next note up and then coming back off with a little bit of a pulling. I mean, it's called a pull-off, right? You basically pluck it at that part of the neck rather than using your pick or your fingers down at the body, but that's all it is. You don't actually have to do anything else with your right hand, so it can keep that consistent rhythm, and you can toss these little embellishing ideas all over the place because as far as muscle memory goes, they're all going to be very similar. The other neat thing outside of the performative aspect is the compositional aspect, which if we removed it, right? Say, just for instance, we are going to rise up with an arpeggio. Or sorry, not an arpeggio. Well, yeah, we can do an arpeggio with C major. So we have C, E, G, C, the higher C, next octave up, and then back down G, E, C. So that's do 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 do. That's terrible because I'm not a singer. But anyways, now imagine we keep this idea, right? 1 note per hit. However, when we get to the G, we'll turn it into a couple of quarter note or a couple of eighth notes rather, and this is going to extend it out a little bit. But so we have C, E, G, A, G, C. You notice that the A is there, but you're on it for such a short amount of time, and you also come back down to the G. So the next note that you go to doesn't really care that the A is there at all. The G is your leading note. It's what you landed on out of the E. It's the note that's taking you up to the C. The A is there for a flourish or a spice and does not, and the rest of the melody has no care that it exists at all. It is a very neat way of writing lines like this and introducing a little bit of extra momentum and a little bit of extra spice, a little bit of extra flourish without actually having to change your line. In fact, you can take rather static lines and put these little flourishes all over the place, and when you play it back, it's not going to affect the general feel of your notation movement. Right? The melody you're playing is still going to feel very similar, but it's going to feel fanciful now. It's going to feel a little bit more chaotic. There's going to be more drive and momentum, but you don't actually have to worry about figuring out if that note fits in with everything else around it, if it makes sense to go from there to the next note, because it doesn't matter. You move on to it and come back to where you were. This note, the one doo doo doo, the one you start on, is still what matters with the note coming into it and the note you're going to. So utilizing these all over the place in this track are, like I said, a really simple but effective way at getting this sound without really having to put a lot of work into implementing them. In fact, like I just mentioned, you can even add them after you have crafted your core melody line, after you decide what notes are going to be your key notes, which ones that you want to emphasize the most in order to get the maximum impact from the chordal emotions that you're trying to aim for. After you've done that, then you can just toss these in there. It's really neat and really effective, like I said, without having to really put a lot of work into it. And as I've said many times on this channel, you've got to work smarter, not harder. There's a lot of tricks of the trade that really reduce the amount of work you need to put into crafting something while still achieving a lot of extra oomph or power or cohesion or connective tissue through your songs that I think more composers need to be aware of and not look down on. Simplicity is not bad. Simplicity is just another tool in the toolbox, and if you wield it properly, you can come away with really great effects without having to put a lot of work into it. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that real quick because I love that idea. It works so well in here, and it's like I said, it's something we hear a lot in not necessarily all math rock going forward, but I have heard it in quite a few math rock songs that I've checked out, which is admittedly a small sample. But it is something that I kind of associate with the genre, and I finally got a chance to talk about it. So that pretty much covers the sections, most of the sections. We have a moving guitar line, we have syncopated bass elements, we have a drum that typically associates with one of the time signatures and embellishes into the other. What's left? Well, the vocals. I don't know that I have much to say about the vocals. They exist. It's really interesting coming to this from the more mainstream emo that came out in the resulting 5 to 10 years after this, the 2000s, when pop emo started to make it big. This is a very different idea of emo because our vocals are very withheld, both performance-wise, it sounds like, in some sections, and even the production. It is not a vocal production that feels exceptionally powerful nor prominent. It feels low in volume and low in the mix. There's so many other instruments that overpower it or overshine it, especially the guitar at times with its driving, moving element that I think calls my ear more often than the vocals do. This is very interesting to me because it's another aspect of the sonic qualities of the track that lead me more into labeling this as math rock. At least in my limited exposure against math rock, it's a mostly instrumental driven style. And again, I've had a very limited exposure to it, but almost everything I've listened to has limited vocals. Either they're all instrumental tracks or the vocals are a small portion of a primarily instrumental song. And through this, it makes sense to give the spotlight to the guitar, the one that's doing the fun stuff, to the drums, the ones that are including more rhythmic uh, ideas and embellishing rhythmic lines. The vocals are just kind of there at times, and there's a lot of spaciousness between syllables, even, or between phrases. It is a vocal element that, despite being 4.5 minutes long and most of the sections having a vocal aspect to them, is something that I don't think we're going to have a lot of lyrics for. It takes so long to say a sentence, um, that it actively, once again, kind of hides itself. Not only do the other instruments have more prominence in the spotlight, but the vocalist almost seems to intentionally make themselves difficult to listen to. And the only way I can word it, and this sounds bad, but I hope it gets my idea across, is they hide themselves through sheer boredom. They really ask for a lot of attention for me to stick with them when they're taking so long to say so little. Um, and it's a really interesting way to go about doing that. It is very opposite of what I'm used to, but it actually works in this format. I think it's like I said, it gives the spotlight to what's demanding it while also allowing the vocals to be there. They're still heard. I still picked out syllables. They're just not given the prominence that we typically hear in music adjacent to this. And of course, speaking of vocals, we can't do this without talking about the middle section. I don't know if I can call it a bridge because I don't think this song followed any sort of structure. It felt fairly linear to me. So, whatever the middle section is, where the vocals went into a mantra and the band followed along. This was easily the most repetitive section, which is saying something when the entire song is based off of riffs. But for the most part, we've had fairly longer riffs, and this felt like we were working with 2 or 4 beat cycles. Very short, condensed loops. And our guitars had like 2 beats and then a break and then 2 beats. No, not 2 beats, 2 notes and then a break and then 2 more notes. And that was like all they did for this entire section. And the drums went rhythmically very adjacent to that. Our bass, I don't even remember what the bass was doing here. And our vocals were panning left and right, super quiet, where they used to be up here in the mix. They are now lowered down. They felt closer to the floor. I don't remember if there was a pitch shift that went with that. And it was almost like a whisper that was over here and then over here and then behind me and then over here again, and then behind me, then over here, then over here, and just kind of bouncing around. And a lot of this rhythmic stuff almost felt like a dreamlike mantra. It felt like somebody trying to force themselves to think some way. Kind of what I got out of it. Hyping someone up or hyping yourself up, maybe even to get ready for something that you don't want to do. Just kind of like, you're ready, Bryan. You're ready. Let's go do this. You're ready. And you keep telling yourself you're ready. And in order to trick yourself into believing that you are, even if you're not, that kind of psyching up routine. Um, that's what this feels like. I don't know what the words that were being said, so I'm not quite sure if it falls into that territory, but it's the cyclical whispering to oneself where the music even gets sucked into this idea. It's an interesting moment. I hope it lines up artistically or thematically with what's going on in the lyrics, but musically, I find it to just be. Yeah, we took a lot of the direction and momentum we had, and we just lost it to spin our tires for a minute before going back to where we were and slowly modifying that into our outro, which married where we come out of this mantra section with our opening, which I still really like that flow of ideas. I just wish there was something else happening here. It goes on for far too long for what it does. And like I said, maybe I can come around to that if there's an artistic reason for it, but musically it felt out of place. Um, was there anything else? kind of touched on production, structure, all the instruments. So, yeah, I think we're good. Let's dive into some lyrics here and see what's going on with American football's Never Meant. Oh, I was like, why does it say intro? This song didn't have an intro. We just got into it. But no, it did. It says, "Are we ready?" I'm ready. We can keep that one, right? Ready? One, two, one, two, three. I vaguely remember hearing stuff going on at the beginning. I couldn't make any of it out. It was all very distant and muffled. And we did have the imagery of like the drummer like grabbing the sticks or putting them down on the drum kit or something. It definitely looked like they were getting ready to play. It's interesting that it was left in because it feels like an aspect of the recording process. We can keep that one, right? Versus what the song's going to be about. I don't know. Maybe the song is along those lines, but it honestly felt like just basic banter during a recording session. Anyways, verse 1. Let's just forget everything said and everything we did. Best friends and better halves, goodbyes. And the autumn night when we realized we were falling out of love. Yeah. I mean, that's our whole verse 1. Our verse 1 was like a minute and a half long. And that's it. That's what I'm talking about. There's so much time spent to say so little. Um, but I think it's right on the mark. This is very clear to me. There's nothing really metaphorical in here. Let's forget everything we said and everything we did. So, especially, I didn't know particularly what we were talking about, but at the end it says we're falling out of love. So we have two people in a relationship, and one of them suggests that they just forget the relationship ever happened. Right? I don't know. The best friends and better halves. I mean, there's the phrase, my better half, right? That's what you call your partner, or something. Best friends and better halves. I mean, is this what he intends for them to become? Let's forget our entire relationship and just become best friends. Then we'll say our goodbye. No, that doesn't work. Maybe this is part of it, forgetting that we were best friends prior to this. And let's say our goodbyes. And the autumn night when we realized we were falling out of love. So there's definitely something about this relationship that worked for some time, some unprecedented, not unknown time, up until this night. Realize it's not working. So the chorus is this cyclical moment, I think. Says there were some things that were said that weren't meant. That's pretty typical. You get in a heated argument, you say things you don't mean, even though you do typically mean them. That's why you think of them and say them. But it's things that you typically withhold. You know they're not productive. It's a little bit of anger. And it might be a half truth, right? You do kind of mean it, but it's not something you're ever going to say. And then you get in a heated argument and you do. Whoops. um, the last time, though, it's repeated 7 times, but the last time the ending is cut off, it says there were some things that we said, but we never did. And that's written in a different style. Everything else is italicized, which I think is supposed to be the whisper panning, and this one is supposed to be centered possibly, but I don't remember particulars about this section. It's very possible that this is, well, we'll get into it when I tie everything together. But I think it's pretty clear that they got into an argument and he said things he didn't want to say, and maybe the other person said things they didn't want to say. Verse 2 says, not to be overly dramatic, I just think it's best because you can't miss what you forget, so let's just pretend everything and anything between you and me was never meant. I think that's obviously supposed to imply never meant to be. Never meant to have happened. It feels cut short, but I think the implications also kind of. I mean, that's what implications do. They imply that there's other ideas here, and there's multiple ways to read this, but I think they all point to the same thing. So yeah, this kind of lines up with the beginning. Let's forget everything that was said and everything that we did. And it almost seems as if it's a way for this person to protect themselves. It says you can't miss what you forget. So the relationship hasn't been great, and they're going to split up. Don't know if it's amicable, don't know if it's mutual, don't know anything about it, but it seems like the relationship is over, and this person says, what if we just forgot it happened? Then I don't have to deal with the pain of it. I don't have to miss it. It's just something that never was. Because you and me were never meant. And that's what it all feels like to me. I mean, it's very straightforward, I think, in that regard. Now, tying all this back to the music. Can it be tied back to the music? I don't know. I think most of the music does not line up well, okay, so if we look at the music itself, there's that driving guitar line with the embellishment in it that I don't really feel fits much of the sorrow in this track, but it does fit the intended future. Assuming they go this route and they forget that this relationship ever happened, our protagonist can continue to go on through life happy-go-lucky, never feeling the sorrow, sadness, or pain of losing this relationship. But there is a dreariness to the entire song. It's not sad. I don't find it sad. I find there's definitely a sadness to the atmosphere of the track, but I think that sadness is... So what if the music is showcasing this future in which they just forget about it? You can't hide pain. You have to go through grief. This is losing a relationship. You have to get through that. You can't just ignore it, like our protagonist is speaking about. It's going to fester and bubble. And I think that's maybe what the music is supposed to be about. The guitar is our protagonist, happy-go-lucky, dancing around, got all that motivation and drive, very light on their feet. But the atmosphere and the music around it is very somber. It's that sadness. It's the grief that they're not dealing with. It doesn't go away, it just bubbles underneath. Maybe that's what's going on here. Going back to this chorus, though, I wanted to tie this back in. So there were some things that were said that weren't meant, and this is just cycling so much, and it's such a powerful moment, at least in the mind of our protagonist, that it pulls in the music to its cyclical nature. And it ends with presumably a center channel full bodied vocal saying, "But we never did. There were some things that were said I didn't." It's all this regret, right? I can't believe I said that. I can't believe they said that to me. Yeah, I didn't really mean it. Maybe they didn't mean it, but we did say those things and all that. And then this idea pops in. Well, it never happened. But we never did. We never said those things because we never had a relationship, of course. This whole thing never happened. I've forgotten about it. Why are you still thinking about this thing that never happened? Kind of vibe. They interrupt the cyclical spiral in order to escape from the reality of it. And I think that's really neat. Not the action of escaping reality. Don't do that. And deal with your problems, people, for real. But the idea that they used the production to the production and the music to showcase a spiraling and how this person is affected, and the pain they're going through and the confusion and stress that this relationship, especially the falling out of it, is having on them, the effect of it all. And then this mind over matter, let's just forget it happened, and the center channel full-bodied voice coming in and saying, yeah, we never did that, and then moving on with the next verse. Yeah, I like the whole way that came together. So yeah, this is very neat. I guess those are my thoughts then. Yeah. This is where you guys come in. Let me know what you thought of American Football's Never Meant. If I was right about anything, wrong about anything, if you enjoyed it or not, anything you'd like to tack on to my analysis, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what's going on. Above the comment section is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree, which takes you to this menu right here. It has links for everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, join me on Discord, follow me on Twitter, support the channel through Patreon, submit special selections, and so much more. There's a ton of stuff in there. Go ahead and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, we have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.